Pandit Nehru, the leader of Congress, toured the country arguing the case for a united India.
The whole idea that India should be divided was based on a fantastic notion that religion constitutes nationality.
Nayantara Sehgal lived with her uncle, Pandit Nehru.
While I was growing up, the entire national movement, which had cut across religion, region, caste, class, sex, it had been a truly unifying experience. So for a person like me, it was an absurd idea that India should be divided. It made no sense of any kind.
Clouds gather over Simla for the opening of Lord Wavell's conference with the Indian leaders.
In March 1946, a British government delegation, the Cabinet Mission, arrived to negotiate between Congress and the League. This was supposed to be the breakthrough conference, where a deal would be struck leading to an independent India.
Pandit Nehru, who calls for an Indian republic, is accused by the League of working for domination over the Muslim minority.
Jinnah did compromise on his demand for a separate Muslim state. He accepted a united India if it had weak central powers. But Nehru, a socialist and believer in a strong central state, refused any such concessions to the Muslim League.
Mr. Jinnah, the Muslim leader, holds fast to Pakistan, and it's reported that his maximum concessions were regarded by Congress as inadequate. At any rate, the fateful conference at Simla, following the preliminary work in Delhi, has ended in failure.
Calcutta, a stronghold of the Muslim League, August the 16th, 1946. With the collapse of negotiations, Jinnah called for direct action. Thousands of Muslims gathered in the center of the city to demand a separate homeland, Pakistan. As the crowds dispersed, the more radical elements headed for the Hindu parts of the city.
I was thinking of going out for a stroll, and then all of a sudden I found some Muslim hoodlums. They came out, shouted, "Nara-e Takbir, Allahu Akbar. Allah is the great master."
Local gangsters hijacked the demonstration. They whipped up the mob, and it turned violent.
Then I found that a neighbor who had come out to see what was happening, his head was cracked and lay bleeding. So I thought that going out would be absolutely foolhardy. Then these boys, they started hitting the doors, and they said that we will not spare any Hindu.
As the city erupted in communal violence, Muslim slaughter of Hindus turned to Hindu slaughter of Muslims. Shankar Ghosh was covering the riots for a Calcutta newspaper.
A jewelry shop was surrounded by a crowd armed with iron rods. An elderly employee, he was already half dead in fear. He came with his folded hands like this. But this furious mob, they had no time to hear what he wanted to say. So I think a boy of 14 or 15 just pulled his leg as he came out, and the man fell down, and someone hit him on the head with an iron rod. I think that one blow had finished him.
Around 5,000 people were killed in 3 days of rioting. But the British, with one eye on leaving India and fearful of being overrun, ordered the troops to stay in their barracks until it was too late.
We had absolute faith in British authority. We had absolute faith in the peace that British had given us. For 3 days there was no sign of authority on the streets, and it was anybody could murder anybody.
The Calcutta killings shattered the hope of the British that they could get out of India quietly and peacefully. With religious hatred and suspicion growing, the dream of a united India seemed to be falling apart. Pran Chopra was a young reporter for All India Radio at the time of the riots.
Until then, there was still the possibility that there could be an undivided India. That impression evaporated in the heat of what came to be known as the Great Calcutta Killings. Once that impact spread through the rest of the country, the hope that India could remain undivided began to vanish.
After Calcutta, the violence spread. In Bihar, Hindus largely massacred Muslims. In Noakhali, in Bengal, it was Hindus who were mostly under attack. With British power waning, India was in danger of falling apart in the chaos of communal violence. One man thought he could bring the country together and maintain the dream of a united India: Mahatma Gandhi. Ashoka Gupta was one of Gandhi's disciples.
After the riots, Gandhiji's attitude was that we are same people, born in the same country, brought up in the same country. We have believed in the community living. Whether you follow this faith or that faith, it doesn't matter. It's the humanity which concerns.
Gandhi spent the first months of 1947 walking through the villages of Noakhali, holding prayer meetings, trying to bring Hindus and Muslims together. Ashoka Gupta went with him.
Gandhi walked from one village to another, and while he walked, he sang. He rested in a Muslim house, then he rested in a Hindu house.
But the great pacifist and campaigner for independence was hardly the unifying figure he wanted to be.
Gradually, the prayer meetings, the non-Hindus were absent.
Shankar Ghosh reported the story for his Calcutta newspaper.
The Muslims were not keen to come to him, were not keen to listen to him. And before Gandhiji went on his morning trip from one village to another, they used to defy the path, spread thorns, bones, etc. on this road. An advance party had to be sent because he was in Noakhali, he was not wearing any shoes. He was walking barefoot.
Gandhi had always opposed constitutional concessions to Muslims. For many of them, he represented Hindu supremacy.
Mr. Gandhi did not appeal to the Muslims, He failed to win the hearts and minds of the Muslims of India, The way he used to talk about politics and his language, it was foreign. It did not appeal to Muslims at all, But he used to be practically, naked. He used to have one arm on the shoulder of one girl, and he should have another arm on the shoulder of another. And the Hindus thought he was a saint,
Gandhi's dream of a united India seemed to be collapsing.
He was a sad man. I think nobody was listening to him. He was considered to be an incorrigible idealist.
Fantastic notion that religion constitutes nationality.
Nayantara Sehgal lived with her uncle, Pandit Nehru.
While I was made no sense of any kind.
Clouds gather over Simla for the opening of Lord Wavell's conference with the Indian leaders.
In March 1946, a British government delegation, the Cabinet Mission, arrived in Pandit Nehru, the leader of Congress, toured the country arguing the case for a united India.
The whole idea that India should be divided was based on a
negotiate between Congress and the League. This was supposed to be the breakthrough conference, where a deal would be struck leading to an independent India.
Pandit Nehru, who calls for an Indian republic, is accused by the League of working for domination over the Muslim minority.
Jinnah did compromise.
Growing up, the entire national movement, which had cut across religion, region, caste, class, sex, it had been a truly unifying experience. So for a person like me, it was an absurd idea that India should be divided.